Hi, it's Chris from Winterfylleth and you're watching rockflesh.com.
It's Stuart here again at Bloodstock, and the sort of people you bump into at Bloodstock. I'm basically with Chris from Winterfylleth. Welcome, mate. You having a good festival?
Yes, thank you. I've not been here too long, just arrived an hour or so ago, so I just watched the band Green Lung, who are a recent favourite, so yeah, happy to be here and nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, definitely. So, a number of things to talk to you about, but let's talk about the new album. So, your album is out on September the 13th. Tell us about it.
So yeah, thank you. Yeah, the new album, The Imperious Horizon, it's called. It's our 8th album proper. Yeah, it's been a little while since we released one. Obviously, COVID and everything kind of got in the way of the last one. So we sort of waited a few years to tour that, and then we regrouped and made this new one. So yeah, I mean, I think in terms of like, if people know the band, it's got a sense of Winterfylleth of old, but also got a new guitar player and Russ joining the band, and there's a few new angles on this one, so I'm hoping that it's a different spin on the traditional sound of the band for many people.
Well, having listened to it, the bit that really got me was there's more of an epic feel about it. It has, it's almost bits of what I would almost call power metal in it. It's got this real, quite cinematic feel to it. Is that what you were looking for from it?
I think so. Obviously, when you're writing music, there's particularly in our band, I have this kind of phrase that I trot out to our guys, which is you can only write what comes out.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you can't be too contrived about like, we need to write a song that sounds like that, or we need a song that sounds like this. And so more often than not, we're writing songs that just come out. You know,
yeah.
Someone's got a great idea, right? Let's build on that. Let's see where it goes. Let's see which path it sort of turns down. And obviously our major intent with Winterfylleth is to, I guess, seek the mountain tops rather than the kind of the graves or the caverns, if you will, in terms of the ends of the genre. So we like to sort of aim for like the kind of epicness and the vastness of the style rather than being kind of lo-fi and stuff. So that's where we were heading with it.
But you do really sort of what I would call almost an interesting take on black metal. It's black metal, but with all the satanic stuff put to one side, all the face paint. Actually, it's black metal with a real grounded reality to it. Is that, you know, what you set out to do as a band? I
think that's fair. Look, Winterfylleth is a band from England whose first album was released 15 years or more after the kind of the forebears of the genre sort of started making this music. So the reality for me was, it feels disingenuous to be a band who's got a more, I guess, organic slant on black metal, a bit more atmospheric, trying not to kind of trot that face paint stuff out. Look, you know, that belongs to those guys. I love that stuff when it's done by like the original Norwegian bands, for example, but me, who had already been in other well-known bands in the UK, Atavist and others, it felt strange to me to be like, oh, that's Chris from Atavist wearing corpse paint. It didn't work. So like, I always wanted it to be a bit more about the atmosphere and the lights and the sonics rather than a costumed me presenting it, you know?
And you've also done some really different things. So Hallowing the Heirdom basically saw you go completely acoustic, completely folky, and actually got really well taken within the folk community. You know, do you feel like going back to that or bringing that stuff in?
We've always had this view of there being like breathers on the album that are kind of, they break up this relentless, you know, barrage of songs that are kind of heavy or blast beat ridden. And so particularly on this album, you know, we've got like a lot of pacing. There's some like slower, kind of more languid, epic songs. There's a few shorter songs. There's some acoustic or synthy interludes and stuff. So I think all of that has a place. Look, on when we did Hallowing Of Heirdom in 2018, it was always a case of we want to try and explore the more like acoustic side of black metal and like do a really evocative album that is authentic and sincere in that space, because a lot of the ancient music we reference lyrics from, or we reference melody from, maybe in some ways, is from that space. So like, we wanted to do it, but we've always had acoustic stuff on our album. We might go back there again, but I don't know if we'll ever do another full album of it. There might be like a few tracks here or there, or an EP or something, but it's within our canon now, and it's like acceptable for us to do it. So,
and we were expecting, because he got, as I said, he got really taken on by the folk community. The folk community, I've got friends who are folky fans who loved it.
Yeah.
You know, did you expect it to be taken by that community as much as it was?
No, absolutely not. You know, I mean, some of the songs from it, The Shepherd, which was the first track on the album, it ended up on some like computer game soundtracks. You know, it was on like this PlayStation soundtrack for the Assassin's Creed games and stuff like this. So like there was this community of people who very much saw it as being in that kind of same space as, you know, some of the thrust of those games or whatever, and like it really connected with a different demographic than our usual metal stuff. So you know, I'm glad of it. It's a difficult one because that stuff's within us, but it's not the core of us. And so like we could, if you were maybe like thinking, oh, let's pursue one thing or another, you could maybe go down that route. But I'm glad we've got stuff that could cater for both, should we need to, you know.
Well, and also you mentioned Atavist, and I've got to mention it because they are the cult band and stuff. Is there going to be any more? You know, there was an album a couple of years ago which was just absolutely stunning. It really was just brilliant. Does that boil away in the background?
It kind of does, yeah. It's difficult, you know, when you're in a band like Winterfylleth. Obviously, we've come from being a small band, you know, 4 or 5 friends, and it's built up over the years to kind of being what it is, you know, playing international festivals, touring, releasing well-received albums and stuff. So from our perspective, a lot of our creative endeavor and our energy goes into that. But for myself, I had Atavist, my other band that existed before it, and it's kind of continued through it. So it's nice to have a breather sometimes to do that. But the way that the world has worked so far is that we've had to focus our energies on Winterfylleth. You know, like for example, my bandmate Nick, who plays the bass in Winterfylleth, he's got a brand new album by this band Magnetar that he's doing, which is coming out on Vendetta. Like Russell, our guitar player, has Necronautical, you know, and all this sort of stuff.
Got Ard, which is just...
Yeah, Mark, our keyboard player, has Art. So like they've all just produced new albums. So everyone has their fingers in other pies to kind of scratch a certain itch creatively. But equally, our collective main focus is Winterfylleth. So yeah, I've got loads of ideas. We've got a death metal project on the boil, but you can only do so much. And I think you shouldn't scattergun it. You need to focus. So like our focus right now is Winterfylleth. Maybe in a year with a bit more downtime, then we'll do something else.
But like Simon and yourself, I'm also a proud Mancunian, and I see you around the scene in Manchester loads. One of my favourite memories was seeing you at the Death to All gig, holding your basically couple of leprosy in the background, waiting to get them signed. You know, what's really exciting about you is you're still fans. You still love this music.
100%. And I think it's almost stupid if you aren't, you know. Look, obviously we are what we are with our creative endeavours in Winterfylleth, and we care about other people's music, you know, like we're fans of all sorts of music, death metal, black metal, ambient music even with some of us, like Nick's a really big fan of like drum and bass and techno and stuff like that. So there's lots of other stuff that runs in the band. And look, you know, if you go to an extreme metal show in Manchester, probably one in 3 I'll maybe be at. So like,
I must admit, you and Simon are almost constant.
Yeah. So I care about this stuff, and it's good to be on top of like what else is coming out, because particularly within the underground, you know, that's where stuff kind of builds and brews from. And if you're there on the ground floor, you find some gems that you might miss if you're only into the kind of slightly more mainstream stuff. So I think it's a cool place to occupy, you know, and I'm glad to keep supporting other bands.
Definitely. And you know, so we're here at Bloodstock. Who else are you here for the day? Who else are you going to sort of check out this evening?
I mean, I'm going to see our friends in Enslaved, definitely. Like we did some touring back with them a few years ago. Obviously, Opeth, who are one of my favourite bands of all time, doing a fan selector set, so I'll be interested to see what comes out of that. Our label mates and friends in Darkest Era are playing today on the Sophie stage, so I want to watch them. And then I'm trying to think. Well, Grand Magus are playing as we sit here, so I'm slightly missing them, which is a shame.
I've got exactly the same problem.
But I'm trying to think who else is playing today. I think those were the main ones, but you know.
So for me, it's the Rotting Christ into Enslaved.
Right, I want to see Rotting Christ as well. Yeah. And their new album Pro Christo is great as well. So yeah, I mean, one of the better days at the festival in many years. You know, as a whole day. So I'm really excited about it.
So as you said, you've got the new album out. Where does that? I presume that means you're at the beginning of the cycle. Where's the cycle taking you?
So the album, well, we've released 2 singles already. I think we have another single which is called To the Edge of Tyranny that comes out on the 22nd of August. The album's out on the 13th of September, and then we've got a as yet unannounced UK tour, the 4th to the 10th of November.
Hearing it first here in Rockflesh.com.
We're then doing an island mini tour in January, February, and then we've got a European tour that we're currently looking at February, March. So we'll be out there. Come and say hello to us. Like we'd love to see you at the shows.
Definitely. Well, we will hopefully be there. If the UK tour is Manchester, I will be there, sat there in a seat, cheering you on.
The 10th of November, Rebellion.
Right, we've got that down. Exclusive there, 10th of Rebellion, 10th of November at Rebellion. And final question, you know, we talked about festivals, we talked about Bands You Light. If basically Vicky came to you and said, right, next year you can have a whole day, you can have a Winterfylleth day, you can basically take home Sophie, you can do your own thing, what would you have?
Well, I just bring all my favourite bands, I guess. You know, I bring Primordial, I bring Drud, I try and get Ulva to reform and do a black metal set. I'd get some of my friends, say, for example, to come and play. I do something around this atmospheric space. I get Vemod to come over. I get Dodd Hamsgaard to come over. I get Dot Vordens Navan to come over. Bands like that I think would be a really evocative in that darker Sophie space.
Brilliant. Vicky, you've heard it here first. Get him to do it because it'd be absolutely brilliant. Right, really nice to talk to you, Chris. You've been listening to Chris from Winterfylleth and Stuart from Rockflesh. Check out, do all the normal things like subscribe and all of that, and we'll have all the reviews up early next